So this is my video about my new amp. I've done loads of reading online about it, but not many people have actually spoken about this on YouTube or kind of stood in front of a camera or done anything that's kind of straightforward. A couple of techie guys, one in German and one, the Hi-Fi Zone guy, has talked about it, but pretty much from a very techie point of view, no one has really said, oh, I have this amp and I plugged it in and it sounds amazing and this is what I'm going to do. So this is my first video of probably 3 or 4 about my new D9 Pro Master Edition. I bought it off AliExpress like everyone else does. I bought it from a really trusted seller. I waited till the prices had, I know the prices go up and down on AliExpress, so I waited till the prices relatively dropped quite low, and then I used a couple of vouchers. I don't know how many dollars it is, probably in the 800s, because it was 600 and something. It was about £700 once I'd paid for shipping and everything like that. I think it was just under 700. So I think it's probably in the 800s dollars wise, probably late 800s, almost 900 dollar wise, because it's 1.3. But yeah, so I've got a really basic setup in my room. I run a pair of Transaudio 106Gs, like their newer model 3-way speaker. It's a big box. You probably have to run it more like a small floor stand than a normal bookshelf, because it's so big. It's got a big bass driver. It says it can take up to 450 watts at 4 ohms. So I was looking for a more powerful amp. My story, you might have seen some other videos, but my story is basically I've built a room. My son thinks it's like a cinema because I have 5 seats in it, but it's basically a listening room that looks like a cinema. So behind this screen, I have a big TV, but I cover it up when I want to just do audio so that it doesn't affect the sound stage and things like that. So I brought in all my old kit. I had stand, I had an amp, I had a power conditioner, and I bought a new DAC, which would link everything up, and I bought new speakers. I use a D90, topping D90, but it's the MQA version. The reason I got this was because it has a connection that allows me to connect HDMI so that on my screen I can play videos and it will send audio back. But it also is an amazing quality DAC that lets me listen to music. But the part of the story is my small system was a musical fidelity 2 or M2SI. I don't know if it's going to focus that yet. M2SI and a pair of DALI Icon 2s speakers. Really basic, but really nice. Probably bang for the buck. You're not going to get much better. I think when I bought my amp, it was about 3 to 350. Now on eBay, if you're a real monster, you can get one for under £300 because the new models come out. And DALI Icons are probably worth about 400 on a good day, but they sound amazing for a cheap speaker. But I've got to this point now, and I had my M2SI, and I was looking at amps, and I'd got to the point where I thought I might buy a SMSL PAX Class D amp, because everyone's raving about Class D amps, and I thought, let's do it. At worst, I can buy it, have it for 6 months, sell it again. I'll get a good deal on AliExpress. And then I saw a few people talking about these, the D5, D5 Pro, D9, D9 Pro, and then D9 Pro Master Edition. And at first I thought, no, it's a bit too much money. And then I saw that the price goes up and down, and that some of the sellers sell them at great prices every so often, and you get vouchers and things like that. So I decided I would wait, and I bought them. It took about 3 weeks to get here. I've had 3 decent listening sessions of about 2 hours with it. And the one thing I'm going to say is you have to excuse my piece of stone that I've put underneath my amp. I'm not going to put a amp rack because everybody knows they get super, super hot. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to literally leave it. I'm about to buy a proper piece of stone to put underneath it that'll be the right size and a bit nicer. And I'm going to buy some slate that goes underneath my speaker stands and then underneath my sub. But yeah, this is where I'm at. So, first impressions. I think it's an amazing amp. It is a huge, huge upgrade on my M2SI on another planet. The three things that I noticed with it are bass notes. Some people tried to comment that some of these models don't have much bass, but actually, I think it's the opposite. I think the bass is improved. I think what happens is the bass isn't bloated and it isn't over exaggerated. What happens is it starts actually playing bass notes. So if a tune has a bass player or a kick drum, that's what you're hearing. Where I think with a lot of other amps and speaker combos, you get huge bass notes that are over exaggerated and don't actually sound like musical instruments. So I think people saying there's no bass is actually the amp, especially the master edition that I've got. My impressions so far are it plays the notes that are meant to be there. It doesn't play just big, crazy, like over exaggerated bass frequencies. They're almost like a big block of something that are kind of trying to work out what it's meant to do. So that's my first impression. The bass notes were really impressive and quite tight. My speakers do well with bass notes for a bookshelf. I haven't connected up my sub yet because I run my topping straight into my amp because everything I run in my room is digital. So I don't use a preamp and I never have. It's something I'm going to consider. So I haven't used my sub yet. So that's an impressive thing to find out just based on that with no sub. Control, I would say it's very tight. The tunes they're playing are really precise and you can hear that it's quite aggressive and it has way better attack than my old amp. It just sounds so much better. You couldn't believe it. And then the other thing is there's a lot of subtle, let's say, content, shimmers, metallic noises, the kind of thing, people breathing on microphones, people strumming strings that are a bit more metallic than normal, and you hear all the subtleties. That's come out since I've used this amp that wasn't there before. The one thing I would say, people might think, oh, that's because you've got these crazy speakers with this amp. What I did when I first got this amp was I plugged my DALI icons in first because I wasn't plugging a amp that I'd bought from China on AliExpress straight into my good speakers. And I had a test run of about 45 minutes just playing lots of tunes that I knew really well. And the DALI icons sounded amazing, like better than I've ever heard them. Better than the 3 or 4 amps I've owned before with them. I had like a Rega Brio R that I used for a long time with them and it was really good. But yeah, so then I knew the amp was working and so I then put in my good speakers. So yeah, definitely bass notes, control, and loads of subtle detail that's added to what's going on. So amazing. Also, I would say the imaging is improved, but that's quite hard because it's what I'm always looking for. So I might be jumping the gun a little bit with that, but I do think the stereo image has improved a lot. But I'm going to be really interested how it develops with the running as time goes on with that one, because that's probably the one that I'm hoping keeps improving and improving. The one thing I would say is I do wonder how much the DAC I am using, because it's the only thing that plugs in, is affecting what effects I have. So I understand that a topping DAC, especially the better quality ones, are designed to be very accurate and very attack and precise, attack orientated and precise. Where if you had an R2R DAC or some other, like maybe European brands, then it might sound a bit more natural and it might sound a bit more open at the top end and it would have a different effect. So all these positives that I'm talking about from this amp are probably related to the DAC that I use as well, because these are the characteristics of this DAC. Quite precise, very accurate, lots of attack, almost aggressive at times. If you're listening to a lot of stuff with detail, it can wear you down a little bit, but it's what I like. I'm a bit of a detail freak when it comes to speakers and amps and playing tunes. So that's something to keep in mind. Just in case all the kind of crazy speaker people want to know, I use Cord Clearway cables for everything. So Cord Clearway USB, Cord Clearway XLR, Cord Clearway power cables. And then the only thing I have that's not Cord Clearway is my speaker cable, which is QED, is it XT40i? I think something like that. Loads of people had recommended to me. It's not crazy expensive stuff, but it's nice. It's a new speaker cable that I've been using just with this build. I think probably I might at some point switch back to what I had to see if it does make a difference. But at the moment, I'm using this QED XT40i speaker cable and it's great. So yeah, this is my first video. I'm going to make a video probably in a month's time-ish, probably. I think maybe about that. Just once I've got 3 or 4 sessions a week for the next 4 or 5 weeks, a bit of running, a bit more to impression, place lots of tunes that I know, some that I don't, and just get a feeling for what the amp sounds like and how much it's made a difference. But this thing, honestly, is a monster. It's like 23 kilos and it's a big amp. Mine got hot. Like, did I do a 3-hour listening session? It got quite hot, but it didn't get crazy. My theory on the heat thing is, I think it's an amp that gets hot. But I also think a lot of people in places like America and Asia are in hot countries. Where I'm in Scotland, Scotland never gets hot. The other thing is, I think a lot of people have hard speakers to drive. So because this amp can do 300 watts a side at 4 ohms, I think a lot of people are using it with tougher speakers that drop down like 2 ohms and maybe even below that. So even though this amp can do it, it's going to push it. So someone who's running bookshelf speakers or speakers that are easy to drive in a country that doesn't get hot is not necessarily going to have the same heat issues and the dispensation issues that someone in a country like Taiwan or Malaysia or like in the south of America, and they're driving hard speakers in hard big speakers. So I've got a lot of theories. I'm going to see. I'll come back to you with a bit more precise information. I'll write out some notes so that I can actually talk about real things. But yeah, this is my first video of talking about the D9 Pro Master Edition. I know it's a copy of a dartzeel, is it NHB 108, something like that? Yeah, it's NHB 108. The other thing that I find quite funny is what all these people talk about, saying, "Oh, yeah, they stole an idea. This is the Chinese like rip-off amp." If you do any sort of research, you find out really quickly that the design of this amp was actually put on a bunch of speaker forums to discuss. And even before that, the design was developed by two or three different colleges working on a project. I think I can't remember what the name of the colleges were. It might be MIT. But basically the general design of this amp was designed in a really basic form by a college. Then it was put on a forum to discuss by the guys that then eventually created the dartzeel brand. And then they took a not so great version of this and created the amp. It didn't have soft start, it didn't have speaker protection, but it sounded amazing because it's dual mono and it's got a great design with great parts. The Chinese guys that have developed this and now are building it have now gone 4 stages or 5 stages through that and taken out a lot of the issues. So it's an amazing amp that sounds great with great parts. Hopefully that means for me in Scotland driving my 450 watt speakers, there's not going to be a huge issue because I don't have to drive them really low and I don't really run at crazy volumes for a long time. But we'll see. But my first impressions are this is an unbelievable amp and it hits way, way above the price point. Way, way above anything that I could have probably afforded if I'd bought a professional labelled amp from a hi-fi dealer in the UK. So we'll see. We'll see what the long-term review is and we'll keep you all posted. If you've got any questions, if you've got any comments, even if you've got something that you want me to talk about or show or review or test, I'm happy to do that. I don't really want to do videos of me playing music with it. I think that's a wee bit weird. But I might do that. I might even do it. I could do a video with the icons plugged in. I could do a video with the monitor audio plugged in and show you what they do. But that's not really my outset at the moment. But we'll see. Okay, thanks. See you later.